You know, something I want to talk about, and I just want to know y'all's thoughts on this, is it seems like a lot of people think that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are the same. I feel like there's a lot of voter apathy because they feel like Democrats don't do anything for black folks. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard those kinds of
Yeah, both
complaints.
sides.
All the time.
Yeah. How do y'all address that with your audience, with your friends, with your family?
I tell them they're wrong. Like, you're not right. They're not the same. It's totally different in terms of what happens in regards to what's right for you and what's in the best interest of you and your family. So that's how I started off. Like, that's not right. That's a myth.
I think the problem is a lot of people are waiting for this bill to say Black Wakanda Forever bill, but most bills that actually affect us are the ones that are targeted to our community. It may not say black, but if you look at the people who are affected most, you see that this disproportionately actually affects the black community in a positive way.
Right. I think an example of that is people keep bringing up Vice President Kamala Harris and how she said she wasn't going to do anything for black folks, and they've taken that quote out of context. What she said was that if I do something that helps black Americans, that doesn't just help black Americans, but that uplifts all Americans. And she was specifically talking in the context of a bill that, though it didn't say blackity black Wakanda bill, it did target low-income communities in a way that it would actually uplift black Americans because of that disparate impact that you're talking about, that disproportionate effect that we have in our communities. And I feel like people just get those sound bites and don't get the full context.
Look, when America is just hurting a little bit, black people are dying. Right? That's literally what
When
happens.
America is hurting,
Black people are dying, right? And the problem is a lot of us, we do not understand how the government works. We refuse to read. That doesn't help.
But let's just talk about that whole situation with we want some specific bill that only affects black people. In the American Rescue Plan, there was a bill where it was going to give black farmers solely only $5 billion. But guess what happened? It was challenged in court because it didn't have constitutional muster. When you introduce a bill that is exclusive to only one group, it can be challenged and deemed as unconstitutional. We have to be smart when it comes to these policies, which is why we have to target black people, and we have to be like, okay, if we're the people that are closest to this pain and this policy is going to impact our community in a positive way, then what's the problem with this bill? Who cares about the title?
Right, like the Crown Act. Yes, we talk about the Crown Act and how it affects black Americans and preventing discrimination of natural hair, black protective hairstyles, but it's not actually written in a way that is just for black Americans.
No, it's
it is
not.
written in a way to protect all ethnic natural hairstyles. But we understand that the disparate impact, we always say that in the law, there's disparate treatment and there's disparate impact. And disparate treatment is I'm directly telling you that I am segregating black people, right? Like on its face, you see that this is discriminatory. But disparate impact is much sneakier. It's I'm not saying that I'm targeting this group of people, but the impact, that's how it's going to come out. And so think about that in the opposite way, not just in the negative of trying to be discriminatory, but with things like the Crown Act. It doesn't say that it's specifically just for black people, but the impact is that it will uplift black people and protect black people.
But those are written that way because of where we live. We shouldn't even have to do that. Do you understand what I'm saying? So yes, I know that it is supposed to be written in a way to include, we are always including everybody.
Right.
We are always excluded. But that goes back to the foundation of this nation. There should not be a reason why it's shot down if I put a bill that specifically targets a group of people that have been specifically targeted with slavery and stolen land and all the things. That is absolutely asinine to me. You can't tell me that, oh, this bill doesn't sound right because it excludes other people. We've been excluded this whole time. So yes, I would love a Wakanda bill that, okay, this is all for black people.
from 1619,
right.
excluding 1619.
She said
Right. So, right. I would love a bill that says, this is what I need for all black people to receive. Okay? I don't give a flip, flap, and jam that you feel some type of way that you're excluded. Were your ancestors brought over here on a cruise ship? No. Y'all just decided to come over here. This is the problem. The problem is we are always having to tiptoe around what we want to appease other people as not to exclude them. when HBCUs were created, we had to because they didn't want us anywhere else.
Oh, come on now.
It was written, right,
Right.
that we're excluded. Now we got policies and bills that can't exclude other people when we've always been excluded.
We have
Those-
HBCUs with more white students in the population than black
Kentucky
students.
State
Yeah.
University is now 51%, where I graduated from, non-African American. That is the problem from the foundation.
They get scholarships.
So now, yes, we are in this time where those policies have to be written like this so nobody raises up, which is why the other lady, her fund is being suspended right now, right? Because she's specifically but we need that.
We do.
We need that. But oh no, we can't say it
Right.
because then it's shot down when we should be able to say it. That is it. But that goes back to us coming over here.
Well,
And I
it's
think
not-
that speaks
when
to
you talk
Democrats
about
and-
when you,
and
that's
when
the
you talk
difference.
about why it is that way, it is because of the votes that we have cast or not. And that's where it kind of all goes back to. And so when you talk about how, Kamala Harris, the senator, made this statement and really laid it out there, you then see how the whole entire Biden administration has done the exact same thing, where they've passed laws or where they've executed laws that have really benefited whole entire communities trying to right the wrongs of the past. Vice President Harris has gone on this entire economic opportunity tour where she's trying to lay out plans to right the economic wrongs done to black people previously, but you can't call it the Black Economic Opportunity Tour for the exact same reason. And so when I hear what you're saying and I think about how to fix this, it's not so much a problem of what our elected leaders are doing in regards to the laws they're writing as much as it is really educating the community about these laws and relying on the media to do that. And we say, we're not reading. Well, no group is being required to read. It's that the media is catering to certain groups and telling a certain narrative and giving them information, but we're not getting that same information. And we don't have media sources and outlets to cater to our community to give them the information they need to say, this is what's being done for you by the black community.
But
We've
that's
had
why we're
that,
here.
Let me
but we
reiterate.
need more of it.
Let me reiterate.
That's why we're here.
That's not what I meant though.
What?
But you're right. But that's not what I meant. What I'm talking about when we have our people come telling us information and all they're doing is repeating things. They're repeating shit.
Right.
I'm like, well, did you read it yourself?
You didn't really dig into
So
it.
right.
Exactly.
So
That
you
goes
take
back-
you take the
Yeah.
first word that someone's
Yes.
saying. So you're using talking points from people who don't look like you, who want you to repeat the shit so you can vote for them,
Exactly.
and then your whole community,
Right.
we're fucked.
But it's just like with that what is it? That rumors thing. When people say it enough,
Yes.
Telephone.
the word telephone.
Oh yeah, the
Mhm.
telephone.
Yeah,
by
so
the time
it's
it-
telephone.
yes.
But also, if you rinse and repeat it enough, people will believe
They will
it.
believe
They
it.
will.
That's why a lot of people speak in repetition.
Mhm.
So,
That's right.
but back to the point. See, the reason why I believe the reason why we can't have these bills that say Wakanda Forever Plan or whatever, or what is it, FUBU Plan or
Right.
whatever, whatever.
Plan.
we
I
want,
love
by
a FUBU
us.
plan. Yes.
The reason why is because we have to say the people who are actually targeted. It's Republicans. They're not the same.
Yes.
And
It
they
was
are
a former
targeted
Trump
most.
aide that went after blocking the bill for black farmers. It was a former Trump aide that decided, hey, I'm going to go after affirmative action. I'm going to try to get rid of DEI. So how are we saying that these two parties are the same when there's one who's trying to protect our civil rights and civil liberties versus one who's constantly trying to strip it away from us? But yet they'll say that Trump is the best person for blacks. But it seems like he keeps trying to put us in chains. And I'm talking about like handcuff chains.
Yes. Literally.
But and all he got
See,
is chains and
he's
tennis shoes to offer us. He has no real
Right.
policy.
Nothing. And what's interesting is the way that a lot of the white people who do support the Republican Party, I've said this time and again, that they forget the supremacy part of white supremacy. You're white. That doesn't mean you're in their supreme class that they're trying to cater to, and really trying to get people to understand, like, they're not helping you either. These folks are not helping you in any way either. You want to have allyship with Black Americans because, as Kamala said, what benefits us is going to uplift everybody.
Yes.
Because they are
And
trying
it's
to cater
always
to a
been like that.
small
Mhm.
group. But all of these people who think they're
I was just
temporarily
thinking
embarrassed millionaires, billionaires, that's who they keep trying to cater to, is people like Trump who are not there. It's really interesting to watch these folks cut off their nose and spite their face.
The
Yeah.
historical
But you have
significance
to. But the reason why that is
Especially
because
from
Trump's
the South.
able to prey on their prejudice.
Exactly.
But the historical
we've always been
significance of what you
scapegoat.
just said about
That's what I'm saying.
the white supremacy party of supremacy, and you think back to it, everything that has been done in this country since the end of the Civil War and with Reconstruction, these laws that were passed to benefit Black Americans also benefit benefited poor whites.
Yes.
An example being the 1864 Land Grant Institution Acts that created so many colleges, many HBCUs, but also schools like Mississippi State University, where many poor whites who were denied access to the University of Mississippi had a chance to go to get an education. So, and again, we forget that these two communities, all marginalized groups, are benefiting together. When one rises, we all rise together. And that's kind of why you don't have them singled out as the Black Wakanda FUBU bills.
But if we had the Black Wakanda FUBU bill, everybody was gonna.
But that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
the plan has always been to separate. So for me, my family's very mixed, right? My uncles are married to white women. My cousins are mixed. I grew up in an all-black town. I was never taught to hate someone because of the color of their skin. If we walk into a country club, the world stops. They walk into our clubs, we embrace them. Come on in.
Come on.
It don't matter.
But
I'm
what
not
black
looking at
family
what-
isn't meant?
We're going to teach you the electric
What I'm
slide.
saying
Day
is,
one.
I have never, all of my white friends, all of them know that I have never in my life had a conversation with anybody. The thought hasn't even crossed my mind. We are the same, 10 toes, 10 fingers, eyes, nose, head. We are human. But the problem is you don't see me as that for some strange reason because you were raised like that. So then when I go back to the overseers, I'm like, you think you're better than us when you were poor also. But they put you on a horse and put you in charge of the slaves to make you feel like you was in charge of something, which is now the police. But make you feel like you're the same as the person in the big house, and you're not. You're not the same. But you got a little power because you're color. You see?
Yep.
So if we can separate them, because like I was telling yesterday about Louisville's a very segregated city, right? But West Louisville is all black, but Portland is right next to West Louisville, which is poor white people. Same area, same problems, food deserts, no jobs, all the things. When I go down there, I am not looking at, oh, my poor black people. I'm comfortable when I walk down. When people say, oh, you don't want to go to West Louisville, honey, these are my people. I ain't never had a problem. You shooting dice ain't got nothing to do with me. But then guess what? They gonna watch me and make sure I get safely to my car and back, because it ain't none of my business. When I go to Portland, it's the same. Same love, same, because we're all in the same situation.
Right.
It is when you start moving up classes, right? And people that have never been to the west end of Louisville get their information from television. So when you put up a shooting, and I go to the comments on Facebook, don't ever read them. You'll throw up. So much vitriol, so much hate. We should just extinguish them. We should just get rid of them. Like in the comments, because you now live out in Prospect, right, of Louisville, where all the big houses are, and all you get your information from. I mean, you don't know what is happening in this part of the city. And if they can separate us and keep us hating each other, when you see me in Portland at my house, when you see me in Prospect at my house, I'm a different type of black. No.
Oh,
Because when I got to Louisville, I was broke, homeless, 4 children in West Louisville. And I still dress the same and look the same. Because we were raised like that, right? We don't look like what we've been through or going through. So you don't know. So that's why you treat people accordingly.
Right.
But then when you find out I'm also gay, oh, Lord Jesus.
Right.
You
But
just keep dropping bombs.
They just keep.
But how do you fix it, right? So again, we're surfacing
always
the issue
separate.
that, in the black community, especially hearing that Republicans and Democrats are the exact same thing, right? That, two sides of the same coin, when they're not the exact same thing. They're not two sides of the same coin. We're also surfacing the conversation that we have multiple groups benefiting from these bills and these laws that have been passed during the Biden administration and really any Democratic leadership. How do we fix this problem? Like, what is the solution?
I feel like it's very much trying to talk plainly about what they're doing. It's everything gets so abstract with the law, and I know I've talked about this before, but if we can give concrete examples, right, really specific examples, like if I'm able to, look at my cousin and say, you know how you have Medicaid right now to cover your health insurance? That's because Democrats fought to expand it, and Republicans tried to block it. And if Republicans had succeeded, you would not have that healthcare right now. Like really just being able to tie it to specific things that affect people's day-to-day lives, because I feel like it all gets so far away from them. And we're concerned about paying bills, feeding kids, getting health care. And if we can tie it back to those things, if we can talk about the fact that there are red states that just left federal money on the table. And now
Mississippi,
we're
Georgia, Tennessee.
14.
But
those
Booker,
14
to push back just a little bit. I was thinking that. And I think to myself, you do that every day. Kenny, you do that every day.
But
you guys do that every day. And it's still, that's a part of it. But it's only one small part. And it's like, I'm thinking to myself how unfair it is that you have entire communities that get constant communication from people who look like them and people who think like them and people who agree with them. And they're not only giving you the news and the education behind it, but they're giving you the commentary and they're guiding thought. We don't have enough representation in the media doing this level of work and breakdown that caters to our community. We used to have it. We used to have vibrant, publications like Ebony.
Right.
We used to have Jet. We used to have BET. We used to have Tavis Smiley. All of that's gone. And the more I'm thinking about what we're talking about, the more I'm realizing that's probably by design. Because right now, we don't have Angela Rye anymore. We don't have Tiffany Cross on TV anymore. And we also don't have, when these people then try to create their startups like Roland Martin with Black Star, they're not getting funded.
Nope.
They're not able to reach a wide audience. All of that is a part of the problem why in our community, people are going to sit here and say that these two parties and these elected leaders are the same thing because they don't know, because no one's giving the commentary that we're giving, that we're, sharing.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing. Even though even though we see a lot of that on social media, we have to understand that social media isn't real life. And also when we actually have a real conversation, and every time I talk about student loan forgiveness, all of a sudden there's somebody in my comment section saying, oh, I got 90,000. Oh, this was transformational. I mean, I literally had my whole box where her whole chest say that Joe Biden hasn't done anything. He said he was going to do something about student loans, and I haven't gotten anything. I said, have you applied for SAVE? She said, what is that? I said, we're going to do this right now. We pulled out her laptop right then and there, and what basically happened, she was paying $500 towards her student loan repayment plan, right? She signed up for SAVE. She was approved immediately, and it went down to $135 immediately. And she said, oh my God, thank you so much, Kenny. I said, I didn't do this. Biden and Democrats did this. Kamala Harris did this. Now you see that it's actually affecting your life, and now she's gung-ho for
Like
Kamala.
it was literally push the button and approve.
Yes.
Yeah,
Literally push the button.
And I
Immediately.
I think that's an example of what we're talking about, the other side of it, right? Not just on our platforms. You helped somebody in the real world and did that kind of outreach, and that's the other part of our activism. Like, I know, and I feel like everybody in this room, probably agrees. Like, I enjoy going out and canvassing for local politicians, right? Talking to people, knocking on doors, volunteering with organizations, and getting that face-to-face interaction with folks. And I feel like that is a prime example of how that works. Like, we can't just talk at our screens and get the information out there, but to actually try to relate in the community in different ways, even if it's just something you do, anybody, maybe just once a month, say that you go to your church and you talk in front of your church face to face and say,
to do it.
It only
and just
takes
volunteer
bringing ideas
to
to
it
the
and say,
table.
I'm going
Right.
to be out in the reception hall. I have my laptop. I'm going to help you sign up for the SAVE plan, right?
Come on.
Things
But
like that.
Yeah.
This goes right back to what he said.
Yeah.
TikTok is not their entire community, the entire
Yes.
country. Because that's one thing I do. I knock on doors and not just canvas. Like, I still go back in the hood and I still try to understand where people are coming from. Am I missing something? And I always try to make sure that I can relate to them, understand what they're saying. They come up with these different slang words. I do that because once you do that, you make people feel comfortable.
That's all I was gonna say.
That is so important. So when you talk about Kamala, people light up. And that goes back to me. I'm going to keep saying, y'all, I can't stress this enough. It's because we're not informed. We need to be informed. And we have to we have to let people know the importance of voting. Now, where I have a problem with, I live in North Carolina, right? So when I'm knocking on doors, they're like, oh, we love Kamala. Everybody love Kamala. But then when you get down to Josh Stein, Allison Riggs, Jeff Jackson, blah, 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 they don't know who these people
They don't even
are.
know
That's
who they
what I'm
are.
talking about.
So if Kamala wins, that is good. Remember when they said we was going to have this red wave? Remember when they said that?
Didn't happen.
Well, they didn't
And
have
we
it.
stopped with the blue
But-
wall.
But, right. But locally, it happened in North Carolina, right?
At the local,
So,
local level, the small elections.
So which matters the most?
Which
Because
matters
if
the most.
Kamala wins, I think she can win this, right? If she wins, my state, and then the Republicans are still in control, even if we have Josh Stein as our governor, we are still fucked. Black women would still be fucked. So to me, this is why it's so important that when I'm knocking on doors, I'm still educating them, letting them understand the importance of voting, how you vote, why it matters.
And when North Carolina was so unfortunate, is that it only took one. It was one seat in your state government. One seat that Democrats had a majority by one, and they convinced that one person from the Mecklenburg
Who
area.
controlled a black district, by the way?
The black voters, they elected a white Democrat
She said
to be a Democrat,
That should be a
to
crime.
follow these
That
policies.
should be a crime.
And then she flipped and became a Republican so they could have then the supermajority
she
they
got
needed to
caught.
overrule the governor. These things happen, and but again, you gotta think to yourselves, how many of the people in that district, this black district that voted for this white Democrat woman,
so upset.
are aware that, well, we voted for a Democrat, that all the background, all things that happened that caused the flip, that's why they're still not seeing progress. And that's why then black voters in the black community say, we voted every time. We've done all this work for decades and we still don't have any progress because the game of politics is played that way. We have to educate around those things and we have to really do our work to ensure that we know our candidates and that we're voting for the right people. But also, someone should have ran against her that could have beat her, that could have beaten her, that would have been a better candidate. We have to run, we have to vet candidates, we have to encourage candidates, and we have to do our part to support those candidates.
Gerrymandering.
She shouldn't have been there.
So something else I want to talk about is it seems we don't have a lot of folks who are informed about the party switch, and how that happened, and how, we see folks talk about, Republicans, Abraham Lincoln, all that.
The Republicans freed the slaves.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if y'all have any thoughts about how we can explain clearly exactly how this happened, what it means.
Yeah, like we were saying how people are saying there were some great black men and leaders like Frederick Douglass. They were Republicans, and so this is a party that's better suited to benefit the black community.
Right.
So when we talk about the Reconstruction era, a lot of people don't realize that there was more than one civil rights bill that was passed, right? The first one was 1866 or 1877, which said that all people are equal, blah, blah, blah. We knew that was a lie. But Republicans, they somewhat thought like the Democrats do now, if that makes sense. So a lot of black people that were in the North during the time, they were more working in manufacturing, so they didn't need slaves or anything like that. That was that's in the South.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you had the compromise, and the reason why I think, I'm gonna say I think, don't quote me, I know I'm right, but the reason why we had that compromise is because after the war, white men decided to run for office too. They were already rich, right? They were rich. So they ran for office and they started making these bills that benefited them.
Mm-hmm.
And the greediness took into place. And basically they was like, you know what, fuck that. We ain't gonna be taking care, we ain't supporting, we don't care what happens to black people in the South.
It was
Money. So
it was a process, and I think that's a big part of why people get confused because people aren't teaching the history. That's why people are fighting to take history out of schools. But when formerly enslaved people who were black were emancipated, right, according to this Emancipation Proclamation, that was less than 200 years ago. Less than 200 years we've been out of this bondage. People weren't just given freedom. Laws were put in place, laws had to be passed. And there was a moment where it seemed like there was going to be radical progress. And a lot of that, we give a lot of credit to Lincoln. We need to give more credit to Grant because he did a whole lot to maintain peace in the South with the transitions that were there through military action. But Southern voters didn't want that. They didn't want these people there because they wanted to do what they wanted to do. And it was a constant push and pull. And a Democratic president, Rutherford B. Hayes, allowed a compromise in 1877 that removed the military from the South and then allowed terror to be inflicted and to reign. And that's when we had, leading up to this was one of the worst massacres. We know about Tulsa, we know about Greenwood, but do we know about what happened in Natchez, Mississippi? Do we know about Vicksburg, Mississippi? Do we know what happened in Clinton? Literally, Vicksburg, 275 black people killed
Yeah.
and immediately buried unmarked graves. Okay, and again, many black people were Republican because it was a Republican president who freed these people, and they were very loyal to the Republican Party for a generation and then a second generation. But then you have, you have Republican presidents come in place.
Roosevelt.
Right, but that was a shift, was FDR, and you had a Democratic president from New York, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who put in systems and processes and bills and laws that benefited poor people, and many of these black people were poor. So he, like our previous conversation, he didn't write any bills and laws to benefit black people. He wrote them to benefit poor people, but black people benefited. And then black people in America started to look differently at the Democratic Party when the Republican Party was constantly selling them short, like Rutherford B. Hayes did. But many blacks were still very loyal to these Republicans, and it wasn't until around 1955 when Eisenhower, and then you had Kennedy, and it was a big fight between Kennedy and Nixon to see who would get the black vote. And many people were going to go with Nixon because he was a Republican, but they then chose Kennedy because Martin Luther King Jr. came out and endorsed him. And that was a turning point for many black people in this country. And then many black people became Democrats.
But you also had another party switch after that. Lyndon
That was
Johnson.
that was the party switch with Kennedy because he was a Democrat, and then Johnston was his vice president, who was also a Democrat, and then Johnston put in all of these laws and finished out this tenure that Kennedy started that really proved to be transformational with the civil rights movement. And then you also had a huge amount of discourse because one of the last true Republican holdouts at that time was Jackie B. Robinson. And he was a staunch ally at the time of Eisenhower, but Nixon stabbed him in the back. And that's really when most black Republicans truly switched over and became Democrats. And that's a party switch. And the party switched because what Democrats were doing that were benefiting black people and what Republicans were doing that was hurting black people, and that's why we are where we are today.
And it's interesting that you bring that up because those very people are trying to overturn all the things that was done by Lyndon B. Johnson.
It's a huge focus of this current iteration of the Republican Party.
You know what? I've heard someone say, "Well, Lyndon B. Johnson was he called y'all niggas," and he did.
He was a staunch racist, possibly one of the most.
But hold on. We know that, right?
Right, staunch racist.
But what he did do was pass that civil rights bill.
That's right.
And it was, don't quote me. He said a quote. He was like,
if he does all of these things, the black people will vote for him for the next 50 years, right?
For the next 50 years. But he also said that we lost the South. Meaning we lost the white people. We lost the white people vote. And that did become a switch. The big switch for them, right? And they started going over to the Republicans. And then you had the Republicans, they started talking about abortion. Abortion it has a lot to do with racism too. They started talking about abortion, right? They started this, and that goes back to I think the LGBTQ IA plus community. That's why a lot of our people in our community is against the
marrying of republicanism and conservatism with the evangelical movement, which connects both those things together. It's kind of how
it really is.
How it's braided.
Exactly.
But if y'all can't follow that, and anybody who's watching this can't follow that, just look at it like this. If you don't believe it was a party switch, there's only one party.
That's right.
That wears the Confederate flag.
Yes.
And it's not the Democratic Party.
Right now.
They call themselves the Party of the Union. They call themselves the Party of Lincoln. But yet, somehow, they're flying a traitorous flag.
And last time I checked, treason was punishable by death. So listen, last time I checked, so here, everybody had amazing points. I want to say to all of it that our people, are exhausted. Okay? We are exhausted. And when you get to go down to those neighborhoods and look in people's face that don't know where they're eating tomorrow, they don't care about none of that. When they're hopeless, when they're in food deserts, when they don't have no jobs, and you're saying to a 18-year-old, they got to take care of his mom and maybe she got other children, or he don't know what to do, or they don't know what to do. They've seen their grandmother, great-grandmother, and now his mom's struggling. It's generational. You want me to sit down and read about it? That's what I'm talking about. Or I don't have TikTok. Believe it or not everybody has social, they don't sign up for it. They have a phone,
Right.
right? But they not on social media like that, or they say, I'm not on social media like that. They don't know. You're now old enough to vote. But what I see in your eyes is hopelessness,
Yes.
right? What I see in your eyes is, yes, these bills passed. Like for me, going down to the urban league and say, where can I go to find to go knock on doors? Not about politics. I want to know, do you have Medicaid? Do you have food
Yes.
stamps?
Come
Do you know
on.
how to sign up for that? Do you know how to read about it?
Do you need
Do
to
you-
apply for Social
do
Security?
you know-
Come on.
What
Yes.
do we need to do?
Do you know what Social Security, what options you have for your mom that may be sick or that you may be sick? Do you know those things? No, they do not. That's and because you are faced with people when people are getting into evangelical and all the things, that's why I don't believe any of it, right? And my grandfather was a pastor of a church in Mississippi. I don't believe any of them are Christian because it says, what you do to the least of these, you do unto me.
Yes.
Come
If
on.
you believe that, then why are your policies set up to harm the least of these?
Exactly.
If you are you're not scared of God like you say you are.
Ooh.
No, you're not
Ooh.
God fearing like you say you are.
Yes.
Right? If you believe that if you believe that there's a heaven and a hell, you're not scared of hell like you say you
Not
are.
at
Come
all.
on.
You over here worried about my inside out corn person, what I'm doing with it, right? And you're not, it doesn't matter, because if you believe in a judgment day, then you believe that everybody will be accountable for their own actions.
Right.
So if I go down to get an abortion, how does that affect you? You can't insert your faith into bills and policies because you believe it, right? Because then that goes back to you saying this is a Christian land. When?
Come on.
Exactly.
When? The founding fathers was very clear. That had nothing to do with what was going on over here. So when you get into religion and politics, it's a problem for me. It's a problem because your belief now become law that infringes upon my rights.
Come on.
And when that does that, we are not friends. You are an enemy of mine every step of the way. So for me, when we talk about grand things that's going on, I automatically go back to, I was homeless with children. I never lost my hope, but I've seen people hopeless. You gonna come over here and talk to me about policy right now? I have children to feed. I have stuff to do. I'm exhausted. I don't have time. Where are the people that's gonna come to the house to check on us to make sure my children got clean clothes or shoes for school? They're not going to school because nobody's making them go. I had a friend tell me that, and in my mind, that has she's an amazing entrepreneur, great woman. But I, in my mind, have never been around somebody that said, my mama just didn't make me go, so I didn't go. Like, excuse me? Dorothy, you don't have a choice. Especially me being a teen mom. My mom would drag that crib into her room every night so that I didn't have an excuse not to get up to go to school every day. And on the weekends, that's your child. You take care of it. But to say I'm just not going, those are the people we forget about, the ones that fall through the cracks. The ones that, I was 13 when I got pregnant, but the ones that was 17 and 16 got pregnant, they didn't walk across the stage with me. Their parents were serious. They put them out. I ain't see them anymore. Where are those people? Because they are also old enough to vote. But they fall through the cracks. And people don't pay attention to them. And those are the people, not the people that know the education, not the people that, we got it. What about the people that don't know? That sit at home and won't
What
know?
would you
So,
tell
I
those people? That was
Hold-
that. I
hold
want to push it in.
So here's what I want to say today, and you're absolutely right, but something we have to keep in mind. We are Black women. We are extremely versatile, and maybe we can call it code switching, right? So if I'm going back in the communities that I grew up in, right, or that look like I grew up in, what I'm going to be able to do is relate to them at that moment.
Oh,
right?
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's go
absolutely.
do that.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. No, I'm not going to go there talking about Reconstruction and all that, right? It's that moment, right? It depends on the environment, and we really have to be versatile when it comes to that, because we have to make sure that they understand where we're coming from,
Yes.
right?
Right.
But also, we do have Black people within that community who wants to know what Reconstruction is,
Yes.
who
Yes.
wants to
Yes.
understand it, right? Who has that itching for it, like
Yes.
I did. So I
Yes.
think it's a, I mean, look, I understand where
And
you're
our,
coming from.
and
I
our
had my
elders are
son.
leaving.
Yeah, I had my son at 16, right? I grew up poor. My mom was a crackhead, right? We lived in many shelters, in cars at one point. I get it, right? And it was hard because I didn't have no one to take care of my son. I had to finish high school, right? And then work 2 jobs going to get degrees. That was hard as hell. So that's a part of me that I know that I can relate to someone right there, right? Who can understand. And you know what? They don't even have to be black. They can
That's
be
what,
white too.
that's what I'm saying.
So yeah, so I mean, I think it's just important.
And
And the
so much
relatability
of the
is-
challenges that we have lived through, right? Because I think that we all have so many shared experiences are coming out in the conversations as we're getting to know each other. And I just want everybody to take a moment to realize so much of the shared struggle is a result of legislation that was put in place
Absolutely.
to make these struggles exist,
Absolutely.
to
Right.
keep us in a certain place in this society. And the only way for our future generations to get out of that is through legislation on the other end. That's why Vice President Kamala Harris's economic empowerment tour was so impactful to me.
Right.
Because that is the way out.
But-
That is the way to end these cycles. That is the way to stop these generational curses from continuing to be perpetuated in future generations.
But what I am trying to get people to understand that this is still, even though I'm black,
In the beginning.
there is still a privilege that I carry with me. And that's what people are not, we came from the struggle, yes, but
What's the privilege?
when I leave Fayette, Mississippi, I didn't go, people don't come back. You know what I'm saying? You leave the town you grew up in, poor town, don't come back, and you hope that somebody will go back when it should be you. It should be you. I want to start a teen mom program because it was running rapid. Teen pregnancy was running rapid. We need education in there. We need people. But even me, I have always desired, especially my aunt being a librarian, to go sit in the library and read books. It can take you anywhere. So my family insulated me before I got hopeless. I'm talking about the people that say, all I know is hustle. That's all I'm gonna do because that's what has worked. Nothing. When you can see it on their face, you can be talking to them. They're calculating. They're thinking about other things because life has already beat them down.
Yeah.
Do you understand? That's what I'm talking about. We are trying to, I want to get to people before they're hopeless or try to pull them up out of there because not only that, we need their vote.
The reason why black representation is so important, like with Kamala Harris being in that position, and I know that she's working behind the scenes because you can see all of her hands on all of these policies, particularly when it comes to HBCU funding, sending additional grant funding to protect our black babies when they were having those bomb threats. So it's all of these things. I'm one of the people that's closest to the pain. When they passed the infrastructure bill, it was a big thing for me because I lived in Sugar Creek, Charlotte. If y'all don't know what that is, I'm telling you, there's nothing but hoes, drug dealers, crackheads, you name it. And we were literally without water for an entire month. Okay, a water main line had burst because it hadn't been fixed since 1971. And interesting enough, only the poor black side of town was without water. But the gentrified area, which is really just one street up, Noda, they have water and water. So it's literally dehumanizing for somebody to not be able to take their bath. I had to take a whole bath at work in the sink. I had to schedule when to take a bath because the pressure lines were down to where I had to take a bath at 3 o'clock in the morning. So when people are saying that Democrats aren't doing anything and this doesn't really impact somebody, you're speaking from a place of privilege because
Yes.
it is literally a privilege to be able to wash your ass. And you already know how we are when it comes to hygiene. We don't play that, okay? It's
Right.
very anti-black not to wash your ass, okay?
I showered twice yesterday. Just running around. But no, that makes me think about the difference between growing up in a red state and now I live in a blue state. So I moved from Memphis, Tennessee. I now live in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. and Maryland. I have moved from Memphis, which is one of the most dangerous cities in the country, with one of the highest rates of poverty, to Silver Spring, Maryland, which has been rated one of the best places to live and also one of the most equitable places to live. And if you look, it's a very large black and Latino population. Silver Spring, Maryland is not majority white. And so when they try to make it seem like, well, the black cities and this, that, and the third, and I'm thinking, PG County is next door to me, and that's one of the wealthiest black counties in the country. And like I said, I live in Silver Spring, and they found that through some social science research, that the policies and the laws that the Democrats are putting in place in Maryland have made it so that every single child, regardless of race, sex, gender, or socioeconomic status, has an equal opportunity at rising up in Silver Spring. And I see it because I see where my money is going. I have been very fortunate to go from literal poverty to now living in a higher tax bracket.
Right.
And I see that my money that I pay in taxes is going to subsidize services. Like I have a disabled child. He gets free pre-K because every child who has that disability will be afforded free preschool with occupational therapy, speech therapy, all of that. We're not seeing that with Republican policies, and that affects the money in your pocket, because at one point we had to pay for private therapy. It was $40,000. $40,000, right? So you think about that amount of money and what parents can save if they have, say, a disabled child, which disability is very common. 1 in 6 children has a developmental delay. 1 in 5, I believe, have a chronic illness. I know I did. When we see that they subsidize housing, there's the MPDU program in my county, where I lived in an apartment building where 10% of the units were set aside for families who had lower incomes and then had a reduced rent. So while I might be paying $2,300 a month for this apartment, there was a family with lower income living right next door to me who was maybe paying $1,700. They could afford that, and they weren't forced to live on a poor side of town and be forced out. We are all living in that same apartment complex with our children going to the same schools and our children getting those benefits. But what we're seeing is not just racial segregation in a lot of these cities that are within Republican states. We are seeing class segregation, and the way that they are underfunding these services. And so when people talk about the economic effects, I think folks are just thinking PPP loans or tax cuts. It's not just that. How are they investing the tax dollars of the wealthier people in your community so that your children have access to public transportation, to occupational therapy, speech therapy? How are the public education services? All of those things will save you money in the long run. So it's like, it's a bigger picture, and really trying to get people to understand that. And I've seen that firsthand, coming from a very red state of Tennessee to now a blue state of Maryland with Governor Westmore, who's the first black governor of the state of Maryland, and really seeing where my money is going, and the fact that my child could be sitting next to another child in school that you know, their family, maybe they don't have very much money, but they are sitting next to each other in the same class, getting the same therapy services. We are living in the same community and not just segregating people because they don't fit in that box. It's the most beautiful thing I've seen.
And that's what I try to tell people. Everything in this country is rooted in racism. There is no reason that those pipes should not have been fixed since 1971. It's even like I said, the neighborhood I live in, glorious, trees green, it looks super cute, straight out of a movie. I go to West Louisville, there's no trees down there. It does not look like that, right? When they try to build a I don't know what they call it, but have an apartment complex where it's income based in a I'll say better area, they voted it down, right? Because there is
mixed-use community.
Yes, it comes with this. They was like, oh no, we don't want them out here. Like straight up, because they're filming at the city council, people are saying how they feel. No, we don't want that out here, right?
Don't bring it out here. Not in my backyard.
Because it's coming.
Curry,
and it's
their basketball player Cara and his wife was trying to stop something like that happening in their community.
Oh,
I'll let y'all research that. But if I'm not mistaken, y'all can research that. But if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong.
But it comes with that. It comes with the classism. It comes with the race. But at the root of it, it is racism. Because why? Why is it the way that where trees are located is because of racism? Why is it because I want to have my daughter or son sit in the same classroom? Because you're getting your information from a box or a screen. Right. So you feel a certain way about poor people. You think all poor people do this or do that because that's where you're getting your information from. Because we are trying and we want better for our children. So of course I would like to live in a nice place where I'm not paying $2,000 a month. But my $12,000 a month and your $3,000 based on income, how is that going to ruin your whole neighborhood? Because
Exactly.
I'm here. And that goes back to
Goes back to
Lord.
racism.
Because I
Racism.
went from living in one of the most dangerous cities to a place that is so safe.
Yes.
I live near a metro station. Can take the
Mhm.
train to buses. Now, is there still crime? Yes, but it is significantly lower. And so when people try to say, well, if we give people these things, the crime's going to go up, I have seen the opposite. Because in Memphis, they're not giving anybody anything, and every day
That's
it's
Reagan.
more
There's a
and more.
reason why.
Please break it down. I know
But
you
no,
know
that's-
what. Come on.
That's Reagan talking.
But
about.
like,
It's 100%
right, so
Reagan.
And we gotta keep in mind it is.
I
and
might
we
be
gotta-
a dumb bitch, but
That's
I don't
right,
believe
we're
in
not
trickle down
right,
economics.
exactly.
That's what they
We
say on TikTok.
we also we can't forget about redlining, right? That came from
Yes.
FDR,
Yes.
but the New Deal did not help black folks, right?
Right.
Right.
And then it didn't help when the civil rights, when they was mad and they did that little white people left the communities and
Yeah,
went to-
that's what I'm saying.
But the reason why they don't want these policies to be passed, or the reason why they keep trying to attack these policies, is because they understand that trauma, like when it comes to poverty, poverty is trauma inducing, and the reason why a lot of people are going to crime or committing crimes is because they don't have the opportunity, they don't have the
That's right.
resources
That's-
available.
come
But
on.
if we give them the resources, that's actually crime prevention, which brings it back to Kamala Harris when she's talking about being smart on crime, which is
Come
why she
on.
created reentry programs to
Exactly.
give people resources so they wouldn't have to commit a crime.
Exactly.
Illinois
Because
got
what did
rid of
I
cash
say?
bail.
Because
Illinois
what did
got
I
rid of
say?
cash bail.
When you are
Prices go
hopeless,
down.
when you feel like you ain't got no other choice but to
Right.
go out here and rob or sell drugs, and when I don't see anything else that I'm gonna make it out of here.
Come on.
I don't see any other way. So this is what I'm resorting to. Let me give you the resources that you need to get up out of here.
Exactly.
Right? But they keep talking about bootstrap, pull yourself up. How is $1 million loan from your dad your bootstraps?
Come on.
You know what I'm saying? Come on and be FFR right now.
And it's not
How-
only $1 million
you know what I'm saying?
loans from your dad, it's $1 million loans
It's
from your
called.
dad that he was able to get because he had generational wealth from slavery in the beginning.
Come
Because
on.
they were
Yeah,
slave
because
owners
what?
and we were the
Because what?
slaves.
They-
It
Everything
was
is
never
rooted
his labor. It was
in
never
slavery.
his
Everything
innovation.
is.
It was
Everything.
never his enterprise.
Yes.
It was the unfortunate way the system has always been set
Yes.
up that we have to dismantle, and we dismantle it through legislation. But not only through legislation at the top level, because there's too much focus on who's going to be our president, which matters, but it's all the way down. Because when you talked about the New
local,
Deal
yeah.
passed by Democratic President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and you talk about the Civil Rights Act that was passed by Democratic President Lyndon Baines Johnson, when it hit the states, you had the ability for people to block it and to hold it up
Yeah,
and
the governors
to
did.
water it down.
That's
And that's
Exactly.
exactly what they did in Republican-led states.
Yep.
They did that
With
to
Medicare,
FDR.
Medicaid, right?
Yep.
They did that to
Expansion.
Johnston. And they also did it to Obama. And they also did it to Biden. That's why in the state of
Expansion.
Georgia and my home state of Mississippi, you don't have access to appropriate health care because they reject the
On a
funds and send it
local
back to the federal
level.
government.
Yes.
That's why you
Yep.
don't have the jobs being created by the Infrastructure Act in these Republican
So
states
important,
because
that's
they
right.
block it. But if everyone voted in their own best interest,
That's right.
if everyone did that, you would have a blue wave all across
Like,
this
you
country
know,
and
because those policies
can I
are
say-
the ones that benefit the most
Because
people.
I'm
in
trying
this
to
country.
figure out when they talk about taxes, they say, oh, if your taxes do this, then how is my county still got 30% of the nation's wealth?
When they say
How is it still one of the wealthiest
Right.
counties in the country, even though you're lying to me? Because I'm looking at it and I'm seeing it and I'm looking and this is very jarring being a girl
Right.
from Memphis and low income and just like the shift to
When
seeing
they
this wealth. How's Brett Kavanaugh living 8 minutes down the street from me?
you
Right.
better shut your mouth.
He's got that big old house. I don't see his wealth being affected whatsoever just
Come on.
because
In
the
this
children at my
Blues
son's
County.
school get free OT and speech therapy.
Come on.
Exactly. You don't know where your tax money is coming from. You acting like, oh, my tax money can't pay. You don't know where it's going to fund things that you don't know about. But also, as you were saying, when you get into these areas of voting for my best interest or not being people will tell us, oh, don't vote for her because she's black, or don't vote for her just because this. There are people out there, like you were saying, with one issue. They are one issue voters.
Come on.
Right? And if there are
I
one
know
issue
what you're about to
voters,
say.
and even if you are in the middle and say, yeah, I don't agree with LGBTQIA, so I have to vote.
But there's
for.
intersectionality
That's
when
what
it
I'm
comes to
saying.
that. And
That's
I'm
what
so
I'm
sick of
saying.
people
Yes.
scapegoating the LGBT.
Yes.
Like, we're just going to be the scapegoat.
Right.
And somehow, oh, well,
That's right.
if they're just stripping away rights from the LGBT community, they won't think about me.
Yes.
They're walking into a
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me
at the same
distract
time.
them and let them hurt somebody else and
Yes.
marginalize somebody else. They don't look at me, and it's never going to work because they're going to come.
This
for
is
you
part
then.
of history, though.
Yes.
This is history. When they done with someone else, they go
Uh-huh.
to somebody
Yes.
else.
But we already know that
Right.
if once
It's
they
part
go
of
after
history.
one group, if they go after any marginalized
They coming
group,
after us.
they coming after
We
blacks.
already,
We
that's
already
how
know.
it's always been.
Well,
Yes.
white women now
Which
see
is
what's
why
happening.
we're always on the front
Yeah.
lines
Yes.
for everybody.
That's how they benefit from affirmative action
They
more
have.
than black women.
But now they
But now
see,
they're
but now white
suffering
women are.
because of the laws that have
Well,
passed.
good. No,
And so
I'm not
we
saying
have to
that,
make
but it is.
sure that we're
That's what the fuck they
continuously
get.
emphasizing that our the end fate is all intertwined, and that we have to constantly say that. And it's always going to be. This is how oppression works: is you take the most marginalized group and you go for them first. That's why there's so many anti-trans bills and laws
Yes.
being written, over 438 in this country, to attack that group. And once they can attack and tear down that group, and we allow it, then
I
they're going
just
to come for
wanna-
the next and the next and the
And the
next.
expansion.
I just want to ask them. I'm like, are y'all fucking lonely?
But,
Gotta be.
Like, no, seriously,
No,
seriously,
gotta
think
be.
about it.
Think
Because
about it.
who gives a
you know,
damn?
cold sheets really have an effect on
Look,
people.
I get lonely sometimes, but shit, there's Tinder and fucking Bumble, and I'm not thinking about what that next person is doing.
If
Because
you were in
if you're
Milwaukee for the
happy,
RNC, there was
that's
grinding.
right. If you happy, I bet it's up, and it was up, right?
It was. It
If
went
you're
down. It was
happy-
so up, it went down.
If you're so happy, that's what matters. But if you're miserable, worrying about what somebody else is doing, it's all about
And
power.
I ain't
and when
never
it comes
cared
to
about
taxes,
somebody
I have never.
when it comes to taxes, whenever this shit has been going on since Reagan, but whenever they say lower your taxes, these dumbass motherfuckers sit there and think that their taxes are going to get low. No, bitch,
No.
your
$10
taxes
less.
are going up. Because you're talking about taxes on food, that shit going up. We are the people who go shopping
Right.
Yeah.
on everyday
That's a good point,
goods,
yeah.
not the fucking
It's
rich
real
people.
interesting
So
seeing
no, they're
Bubba-
not saying your taxes are going down. Your
Yeah.
taxes are going up. But we did hear Kamala say, we want the middle on down taxes
Yes.
to go down.
Come on.
That is a big difference.
Yes,
that's a big
That's a big
difference.
difference.
But
Yes.
hearing Bubba making $35,000 a year at the gas station talk about they're coming, baby, they're not talking
not
about
coming- fat ass stomach, right?
You don't qualify.
You don't qualify.
But his
This is
fat
not
ass
about
stomach,
you.
he ain't got no teeth in his mouth. I had someone arguing with me. I had a old white man arguing with me on fucking TikTok. He called me a nigga and I called him a peckerwood. Let me explain something to you. That is the low of the lows you can get. A peckerwood is a poor ass white person where their own people don't even want them. At least our people want us niggas. So
You know what I say to him? I tell him, I call him Cracker, and I say it's okay. I'm half white. I can say the harder you are.
that's okay
Oh, my
too.
goodness.
But here's the thing. You
I don't use
suffer-
that word.
I had
use
someone
the
with me. He was
correct
fighting. He was going back and forth, and he told me. He said, "You know what? I'm not voting." I said, "Well, you can't even breathe. You ain't got no teeth in your mouth. You got oxygen. You still hollering. You ain't voting. You about to die."
And
No,
you
they
wouldn't have
really
been
would
there.
kill themselves
No,
over that.
How are you in heaven's waiting room and over here talking shit on the internet?
Because
But here's
racism
the-
trumps
that's
everything.
all of
That's
it
right.
works together. It is
That's right.
And that's why we have an interconnected fate. And that's so essential that we work to help people realize whether you're a poor black or you're a poor white, our fates are interconnected, and there's no other answer around it
Absolutely.
other than working together to improve it through
That's right.
the system that we have.
But can I circle back
But
to
that's why I
Rashanda's
went
point?
back to say it's all racist.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Because you think that you're better than me.
Power and racism.
You
Yep.
think that you're better than me just because your skin is white. Are you dumb?
Uh,
You're struggling.
Come on.
You're struggling.
And when you look at the statistics, there's more
You're
white people
struggling.
on social services.
It's
than
all
black.
it's all
You're
systems of
struggling.
That's
oppression,
right.
which
And they're sitting
racism
here
is
thinking we
one
need
of those
some help.
systems.
it came up
But
through
classism-
slavery. No, it
The
came
sex-
up
No, it was a big
through-
part of it.
It
Right.
came
No,
up
that was a start. That was the root.
That-
That was a huge foundational part of how this country was founded. That we have to continuously recognize and see. But then again, all these other systems were put in place, and it's easier to get out of. It's easier to get out of systems like classism and to some extent, for some people, sexism than it is to get out of racism because it is so
Yes.
visible. But again, they're all interconnected, just like our fates.
Let me ask you a question. Here, this is what I want to know. I'm done with these fuckers. But let me ask you a question. The Republicans have been in fucking control of the House. I want somebody to name me
Back
one
and forth,
fucking
yeah.
No. Just
During
just
this
recently.
time frame, right? You're talking about during
20
the
I want
current 2-year period of back and forth.
I want
Even
someone to
though,
name.
let's go
hold on,
further.
hold on.
Ends
I want
with
some- we can
Johnston,
go there,
okay.
but
We
I
go
want
further,
someone.
yeah.
I'm just because some. I want y'all to name me one fucking bill, that the Republicans has passed that benefit the middle and lower class.
Well, they haven't passed many bills. I think
This is actually the least.
That's right.
I want to
That's
say
fine.
that
The
Mike.
least
I think
least
we're in the
effective
118th Congress, and is that the one? And it's Mike Johnston.
That's right.
Speaker Johnson's.
No, you're right. So-
House has passed. I want to say like between 25
and it had
and 30
everything to do
bills.
with
Like, that's it.
corporation and
Ingredients.
But nothing to
trying
benefit,
to-
nothing to benefit the
No.
middle
Right.
class, the working class, or the majority of Americans.
So-
It just hasn't
That's 'cause
happened.
So what I'm
people are
asking
up there
is-
getting paid to play.
So what I'm asking
they
is,
dicking
yeah.
around all day, drinking coffee, ain't talking about nothing. They passing. They got nothing to do.
But
They
so-
on their phones ordering from Amazon. Now I don't have nothing to do today.
So
what we
that's
doing?
what I'm saying.
Yes.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
So this is my question to them. Who the fuck you mad at?
That's
Yeah,
Who the
come on.
like? Tell me who you mad at?
They're mad at themselves
You-
because they're literally giving agency to somebody else without actually voting, and that's
This is
the problem.
fucking-
But back to the main point. My question for everybody is because I have to bring it back to RaeShanda's point. People say they don't want to vote for Kamala Harris because she's black. Do you know that people are voting for Donald Trump because he's white?
Exactly.
That's all I'm saying.
And
Do
don't-
they also understand that even with the last 4 years, they'll sit here and say, oh, well, Donald Trump thinks we're so much better. We're still in the same
I'm glad you
Trump
brought that up.
tax code, which is the reason why he wants to get back in office
I'm glad
because
you
it
brought it up.
expires in 2025.
Can I tack on something else to that?
That he said-
I'm tired of people saying we shouldn't vote for Kamala Harris because she did her black job as a prosecutor.
Yeah,
Because that's actually driving me crazy
Yeah.
too. Which
But
is a
here's
whole
the
other
thing, if you look at the statistics,
She
homicide
did.
cases, like
Well,
victims
no,
of
under her.
homicide, 76%
Yes.
is about black.
That's right.
But and I say that I had somebody say, well, if she wanted to help the black community, she'd be a defense attorney. I said because
But
you think
here's
black
the-
people are criminals
but
more than
this
the
is so-
victims.
Come on, I don't
We're
understand
learning
why
because-
criminal and black are synonymous.
That's
Where
right.
did that
I'm trying to
happen?
call-
Come on and talk about. See, this is what I'm saying.
So
We are
let me-
victims of crime. We
Don't
want to
make me
feel
take
safe in
that.
our
Right.
homes.
That's
Slavery.
I want a black female.
I'm not gonna look.
prosecutor
If somebody
to
break,
prosecute somebody against me.
even with what happened, obviously, if something happens to me, the first person I'm calling is 911. I'm not calling Flokita.
Yeah. We love.
I don't understand.
We love for the popo to come in our neighborhoods. What we did back in the
Sometimes.
day. Well, go back to Clinton days. Well, when it the 94 crime bill.
I don't remember always being excited
I
when
know.
they
I
showed
remember.
up.
I remember because there was one police officer that I didn't like because his ass always told my mama shit. So, but they didn't take me to jail. But I got an ass whooping that was waiting for me when I got home. They stopped that, right? They stopped that shit, and it meant because that was when we had community policing.
We had
And
community policing.
that made a difference because we black folks, we don't want crime.
But
that's why 50,
and going back
that's
to
why
what
54% of
Elizabeth
us
was saying,
voted for the crime bill.
in some, but again,
That's
in
right.
some cities,
True.
specifically many of our, where our mayors are Democrats, right? Like, in the city of Atlanta, under Kasim Reed, continued under Keisha Lance Bottoms, they brought back community policing, and they gave housing incentives to police officers to live in communities and do work in those communities beyond just policing, where they were going into schools, they were, talking to their neighbors, and it made a big difference. Those types of policies work.
Empathy,
So
compassion.
those were the things
Yes.
that really create true, strong communities and help revitalize and build. But it takes funding, it takes training, and it takes resources that
I was
can only
gonna
come
say-
through legislation.
And here's what I'm gonna tell you about these people. Oh my God.
Wrap it up.
Yeah, we got to wrap it. Okay. That goes back to when they're not doing the proper psychological exams, research on these people. Some were bullied and now they become bullies. Some peaked in high school, now they got an ego, they on the force. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We got the people that are going to the force, got some kind of air about
That's
them.
Literally,
Wait,
not hiring
wait.
people if their IQ was too high.
That
Right.
goes
Oh my
back, but
God.
hold on. That goes
Wow.
back to police unions, y'all, and that's a whole nother topic because that is where the power is. Even when it came to Sonia Massey, right? Do you know the police union
Yeah.
are trying to protect that man?
Yeah.
Of course.
But
But that
Legal
goes.
gang.
But
Legal
again,
gang.
if you pan out, in order to have the police union, the people that's been in place 20, 30 years, again, they peaked in high school, they racist, they knew where to go. They signed up for it,
Absolutely.
right? They said, I'm going in here and then I'm going to let my people come in here. Even though they dumb, they done failed, they got the lowest score on the test, let them in anyway. Because Bubba got a point to prove to somebody.
They
But one
train
other thing I wanna
and they train
point out-
differently. they train differently. I taught police officers.
Well,
I
they
taught
need the
intro-
mental
I
health
taught
services
intro,
and appropriate training, but again,
Intro.
you're not gonna get that if you don't have the funding.
But one thing I
And
want to
again,
say
you're
is
not gonna
the
get that if you're already racist.
the police association's defending that man.
Yeah.
Guess who's going
Understand
after him? A prosecutor.
Well, I know.
So we have to be on, my point, we
But it's
have
just
to
the-
have
but they-
progressive
You know what I mean? The
policies.
notion like they're really
No,
doing
it's
that.
parents.
We gotta be more than just
Right.
on
All with
defensive
that.
all the time. We
That's
also
right.
have to be
Which
offensive,
goes all the way
which
back
is
to
why.
How do you fix it?
So I can personally say that some things that Democratic policies have done for me directly, one of the main things I've mentioned before is my son is disabled and making sure that he has the services that he needs because it gets extremely expensive, and we just see that with Donald Trump with what he said. I mean, he literally said that disabled people should probably just die. So the fact that Democratic policies have literally helped my son live, and my son would not be here if the policies didn't help me live, because I am here as a disabled chronically ill person because TennCare saved my life when I was 2 years old and all the way up until I was a teenager. So that's what those policies have done for me, literally allowed me and my child to live.
Look, we already talked about when it came to infrastructure and clean water and all of those things that benefit me. But one thing that's benefited me right now is the fact that he's investing in HUD, which actually gave me public housing, which I'm able to be in low income restricted housing because, girl, I can't afford it. I'd be out there in my car. Okay, but at the end of the day, those are the things that a lot of people, because I'm one of the people that is closest to the pain. I think I'm the only one in this room probably without a degree. But those democratic policies are protecting me along with the fact that I have access to health care.
Mm-hmm.
I will say the maternal mortality rate. They have focused on that, especially in North Carolina. Kamala has done a lot of roundtables because of the. It's not the affordable care. You might can help me out. I forgot which bill. They have been able to hire more midwives. But more importantly,
The monuments bill?
Omnibus.
Monuments.
yes, that's
I, I knew what it was.
I couldn't. I said y'all can help me out. But more importantly, they brought awareness to the maternal mortality rate, because the most reason why women are, especially black women, are dying from this is because of systemic racism. So it didn't have to be.
That's all I'm
So
saying.
that is what I'm very thankful for when it comes to Kamala, because they have brought light to that, and that is so important in our community.
And did you also know that they also expanded postpartum care to 47 states?
Yes.
It used to be
North
for
Carolina was
1
one of
month, but now it's an entire year.
Yep. Because that is when, also that's critical too when it comes to maternal mortality, because even after you have your baby, it's postpartum too. It's
Yes.
considered.
Yes.
So yeah, this man has done so much. I will continue to say that this man has done more for my community than any other president. And the fact that Kamala was right there with him, I know she's going to add on to it and do more. They got my back. And if somebody say anything about it, I'm going to cuss their ass out. I don't care if my family or not.
It is my sincerest hope and wish that I could live in a country that had political options. And I firmly believe that even if I lived in a country with 26 parties, I would probably still very likely be a Democrat because of what they believe in and what they support. As a double minority in America, I firmly stand with the policies and the actions of the Democratic Party because they are the only party currently in existence in this country that's working to ensure that black people have rights that are guaranteed to every American, and that members of the LGBTQIA plus have rights that are guaranteed to every single American. Whereas on the other side, we have another party that works every single day and every single night to repeal those rights and to say that you are and will always be in this country a second-class citizen because of your double minority status. And for me, there is no other option and there is no other choice. And I do not understand why any other person who is a part of either of those minority groups would see that they would have options either. Because that other option is second-class citizenship and the denial of your God-given rights.
Yes.
I would vote for a three-legged raccoon before I vote for that man. I'm a triple minority. When I walk in a room, I am a woman, I am black, I am gay. Okay? I'm also a veteran and a business owner. I walk in my full self. The Democratic Party and the policies that have been passed has impacted me on all of those levels. I am now taking care of my mom with stage 5 dementia. Making sure she has the proper health care has been the best thing for me. It is life changing. I found out, I was like, I didn't even know. I get 4 free hours for somebody to come sit with my mom, and I can pay for the other 2.
Okay.
Thankful that I could pay for the other 2 or 3 that I need, but 4 free, all you have to do is vote for blue. It doesn't make any difference how anybody else feels when you see that the other party is opposed to you.
Mhm.
I am the least protected, right? We are the least, Black women, we are always attacked. So for me, there's no other choice, right? I'm too cute to be in a Handmaid's Tale robe. I'm not doing it, right? Unless it's blinged out or something. I can't do it. So for me, it is serious. This is a serious matter. You have to vote like your life depends on it, because it does.
Period.